And welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Really appreciate you joining us again for another daily update from what's happening around the world of baseball anyway. If you guys haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do. Really does help us out. We've gained quite a few of you today anyway, put out a bunch of videos later on in the afternoon, so appreciate you guys sticking with us through that anyway. But for those of you who did subscribe already today, thank you very much. But let's kind of get right into it. A lot of transactions have happened already in the world of baseball. Today we saw Kyle Long go from the Mariners to the Arizona Diamondbacks in exchange for Hummel, kind of a catcher prospect, somebody who's kind of came on later on. But the former Rookie of the Year from 2020, anyway, just hasn't really found solid footing ever since then in Seattle, whether that be due to numerous injury issues that he's had, limited playing time because of the crowded outfield situation there is there. But he should have all the playing time he wants in Arizona, even with 3 star-level prospects coming up in the outfield for the Diamondbacks. There still should be plenty of time for Kyle Long to really embrace that potential he once had. So we'll see if Arizona is able to capitalize on the opportunity here to get a player of that caliber. On the other hand, the Mariners are looking for some more positive production. Now, Hummel is a little bit older of a player to be bringing in, especially for a player who was once the Rookie of the Year only a couple of years ago. And so it's a little bit of a risk here for the Mariners in my estimation, but I don't really see a path for what they were going to do with Kyle Long. They were going to still have an crowded outfield situation, that is, this year, but we'll see how he ends up doing. But just want to say hi to all those people who already subscribed again. I just mentioned we gained several subscribers today. We've gained, I believe, 9 subscribers today. So really nice jump up. We're about 90 away from our goal to finally being able to be monetized and be able to do this full time for you guys and be able to put out videos a lot more consistently. So if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do so. Please and thank you. We cover the MLB, NFL, NBA, and the NHL. Just as a reminder, we'll be covering some hockey for you guys tomorrow night and Saturday night as well. We'll be doing some live hockey. We might do a basketball game. I'm not sure. But if you guys want us to cover one of your teams out there, let us know in the chat, which game you want us to do, and we'll see if we can do it. I have off of work the next couple of days, so I'll be able to make lots of content for you guys and get you guys caught up on what's going on in the world. Of course, today we saw the MVP race finally come to a head. We saw Aaron Judge take it in the American League. Obviously, he was going to be the MVP. Pretty much we all knew it since probably the end of June. And he just kept on steamrolling the rest of the American League. That's why he won the American League MVP. On the NL side, Paul Goldschmidt takes it home, beating out contenders like Manny Machado, Freddie Freeman, Nolan Arenado, players of that ilk. Austin Riley of the Braves as well was in that conversation. Sandy Alcantara was the one pitcher in that conversation on the NL side. But Paul Goldschmidt ends up taking it home. I could see a little bit of an argument anyway on the NL side for Paul Goldschmidt to not be the guy, but every single category you look at, Paul Goldschmidt was pretty much just a hair above in most of those categories, and so I think that's part of the reason why I took it home. The one downside, if you're a Manny Machado supporter, you look at the second half of the season and say Paul Goldschmidt had his struggles in the second half. Manny Machado carried that team into the postseason, especially after what happened with Fernando Tatis Jr. I hear you, but in the eyes of the voters, Paul Goldschmidt was the NL MVP. Welcome back, Giants fan. Appreciate you. We did put out a video about Aaron Judge. We'll have another one coming out tomorrow morning, so keep your eyes peeled about that. We're going to pretty much have an Aaron Judge update for you guys most days for you guys out there, but we did a Yankees situation update. We did the Hal Steinbrenner interview that he did. For those of you wondering what exactly is going on the Yankees side of the equation for Aaron Judge, well, that video's out there for you guys. For the Giants side of the equation, that video will be coming out later on tomorrow morning anyway, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Thank you, Giants fan. Appreciate you for watching it. Got 15 of y'all in here right now. Thank you very much. Hold on just a second. Getting notifications left and right now. Nope, nothing important. All right, so without further ado, let's kind of check in on some of the headlines. Let me get this pulled up for you guys. We also did an Eagles video. You can see some of the information I was pulling for it. All right. In case you guys are unaware, MLBTradeRumors.com is one great place to get a lot of information on what's going on around the world of baseball, basketball, football, or hockey. So if you want to catch up on some information, reading, that kind of thing, if you can't listen to the video and can't hear the audio, you can always put captions on YouTube, but you can always check out MLBTradeRumors.com for some of this information. We're going to have a video coming out for you tomorrow about how the New York Mets are interested in Kodai Senga, as well as Justin Verlander. Now, I put a video out about Verlander 2 days ago anyway. The market for Justin Verlander has certainly heated up over the last several days, most notably when Justin Verlander and his own representatives went to the media and basically said, hey, we're looking for the most lucrative offer. Then the owner, Jim Crane of the Houston Astros, basically echoed the same sentiment, saying he's looking for Max Scherzer level money. We'll see if he ends up getting it, but a 1.75 ERA, culminating in a third Cy Young for Verlander, a guy who probably should have 5 Cy Youngs at this point. And even though he's 39 years old, he still could command quite the hefty salary, and he might actually be the preferred option from the other starting pitchers that are out there. Why is that? Well, DeGrom's going to cost you draft pick compensation, while Verlander will not. And so if you're looking to kind of save some of your prospect depth, that kind of thing, and not really lose anything, if you're really nitpicking about those types of things, then maybe Verlander is your guy if you're really trying to split hairs between the two. On the other hand, DeGrom is 5 years younger anyway. Both have very similar injury issues over the last few years anyway. But again, the younger arm of DeGrom is the guy I would personally want. Even though there is draft pick compensation attached to him, I still rather have the younger guy because he probably will be able to pitch a longer period of time and has a better chance of continuing to be an effective starter. Now, Verlander, he hasn't really shown any cracks in the armor. I mean, 1.75 ERA last year seemed to get stronger as the year went on as well, and also overcame his bugaboo in the World Series, where he hadn't been able to win a World Series game. Finally was able to get that done this year with the Houston Astros. But keep your eyes peeled on that space for the New York Mets and all the other teams looking at the top of the market for pitchers. Carlos Rodon is another pitcher in that space that you need to keep your eyes peeled for. We've talked about it a lot in our lives. We'll have a video coming out about that tomorrow as well. I think we're going to have something like 9 videos, I think, tomorrow. Maybe 11. Just kind of depends on how many videos I actually get posted. But if you guys want to keep up to date on everything that's happening, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Short little 1-minute videos so that way you don't spend all day trying to figure out what's going on. As we mentioned, the Mariners and Diamondbacks did make a swap, the Kyle Lewis for Cooper Hummel swap there. Again, Mariners going for more of an advanced player, or older player, I should say, Cooper Hummel, for the prospect status of Kyle Lewis for the Diamondbacks, really hoping to recapture that. We touched on the Judge and Goldschmidt information there as well. There's the trade itself. More information on Cooper Hummel. Outfield / catcher. Sounds like a player who doesn't really have a home. And as I mentioned, there's some of the top prospects there of the Diamondback system. They've got a nice collection going. And as I mentioned as well, the Mariners outfield is certainly clogged up anyway. They just acquired Teoscar Hernandez, as you can see there. They, of course, have the AL reigning Rookie of the Year in Julio Rodriguez. Jesse Winker is still on the roster, although I'm hearing a lot of rumblings now if the trade possibilities are certainly coming about for the Mariners right now that they could trade Jesse Winker. Otherwise, an outfield of Hernandez, Rodriguez, and Winker would certainly be a very good offensive outfield. I'm just wondering if they still want to keep Winker out there as well. Kelenic was one of the pieces that came over in that Edwin Diaz deal a few years ago. Hasn't really lived up to his prospect potential. Taylor Trammell, another once top 30 prospect, also hasn't lived up to his potential as well. Dylan Moore, a guy the Mariners gave a lot of money to try to get a long-term deal done early with him, a 6-year, $20 million deal, something like that. They gave him a couple years ago. That deal certainly doesn't look good right now. And so Jerry DiPoto at the beginning of the offseason said they were looking for 2 outfielders, and you can see why. They have a lot of good options, but nobody that's the guy at each spot. Aaron Judge winning the MVP. Second place, Shohei Ohtani. The impact Shohei Ohtani had this year versus the impact he had last year was just a little bit less, but Aaron Judge's offensive numbers were just off the chart this year. That's why he ended up taking the AL MVP. Even as good as Shohei Ohtani is on both sides, on the pitching side and at the plate, it just wasn't enough to overcome Aaron Judge as a whole. Yeah, I saw that one. The Rangers are going to host the All Star game in 24. As a Rangers fan, I'm really excited to see them finally get the All Star game. We knew they were going to get one, just because of the the new ballpark and all that. They had the COVID shortened season where they had the World Series played there, all that kind of a thing. But hopefully, we finally get back to everything being normal this off season and just kind of go from there. But Rangers are going to host the game. I'm going to see if I can go to that one. I don't really like All Star games in general, but it's in my backyard, so it's my one chance to really go out, or to be able to see an All Star game, in my opinion. So I'm not really going to be traveling out of state to see an All Star game because All Star games don't really interest me that much. But since it's in Texas, it'd be the one I'm most interested in by far. A lot of the contracts are finally becoming finalized today. Edwin Diaz finally had his numbers roll in. News item here on the Chicago Cubs. They have their own qualifying offer that was rejected by Wilson Contreras, the top offensive catcher on the market. They're showing interest in other catchers as a backup option, I believe. Christian Vasquez and Omar Narvaez. I'm still expecting Contreras to end up somewhere else, the Mets, the Astros, somewhere like that. But say if the Cubs are able to get the shortstop they want and want to really kind of rebuild their organization quickly and try to make a push for the postseason next year, they're going to have to bring in a catcher, whether that be their own guy in Contreras or going for a guy like Christian Vasquez. If I had my pick of all those catchers, I probably would go with Vasquez. He's kind of a good combination of defense and offense. Again, another contract became official today. Rafael Montero had his deal become official. 11.5 million in all 3 years of that deal. Fairly straightforward. There was the announcement of the All-Star game going to Texas. The Suarez signing becoming official. I hadn't seen this one yet. The Mariners are showing interest in Colton Wong. I mean, they don't have Adam Frazier. I think he's a free agent this year, so they're going to need somebody up the middle. There's some rumors out there that they were going to go after a shortstop this offseason. I didn't really see that in their cards. I thought they'd improve their outfield defense and try to get another bat in that lineup, maybe another DH, that type of a player. Maybe improve that number 5 spot in the rotation, add a bullpen arm, something like that. I didn't really see them going out there and spending the big money to get a guy like Correa or Bogarts, Turner or Swanson anyway, because they have J.P. Crawford, who's serviceable at the position. But second base, they do have an opening there, so seeing they might go the trade route once again, not too surprising because it is Trader Jerry, if you will. There was some news about Pete Rose today when Rob Manfred was announcing the Rangers getting the 2024 All-Star game. They mentioned that, they asked Rob Manfred about the Pete Rose thing, about whether or not he should go into the Hall of Fame, whether he should still be on the permanently ineligible list, that kind of thing. And Manfred said he's spoken with Pete Rose on numerous occasions, and Pete's never said anything that's made him change his mind as far as whether or not he should be be removed from that permanently ineligible list. Now, keep in mind, the Hall of Fame is separate from being in that permanently ineligible list. Roberto Alomar is on that permanently ineligible list. He's already in the Hall of Fame, but because of what he did after his playing career, during his playing career, etc. Um, we'll just call it the exploits he went through, um, just to kind of keep it PG for those of you watching. But Pete Rose, because he's on that ineligible list, does not mean he's ineligible for the Hall of Fame. That's strictly a writer's thing. The Hall of Fame, though, has pretty much honored the wishes of Major League Baseball in that regard. So I think until he's taken off of that list, we're still going to have the same issues of whether or not they should finally let him in or not. I, honestly, it's been so long at this point, I don't think there's enough people out there that it matters that passionately for them to. I mean, was a great hitter in his time, had his issues later on when he was managing the team, I believe, and when he bet on baseball, and that's basically an educational moment for the entire sport. Don't do this, or you end up like Pete Rose, and it's been a great deterrent for all these years. We haven't really seen any big problems with it since. NFL, of course, had their problem this season with Calvin Ridley getting suspended for an entire season because he bet on the Atlanta Falcons against the Jaguars, I believe. But the funny thing was that he ended up getting traded to the Jaguars just at the trade deadline a couple weeks ago. So kind of coming full circle there in the NFL. But for baseball, can't really pass up on that story to teach every single player who comes into the league to treat this game with respect. And Rob Manfred pretty much staying in the line. Every commissioner's done it ever since he's been placed on that ineligible list, and he'll stay there for the time being at least. We put a video out 2 days ago about Brennan Nimmo's market as well, how it might have changed now that the Toronto Blue Jays have traded away Teoscar Hernandez. That adds another team in the mix for Nimmo. There's not a lot of great outfielders on this market this year. Aaron Judge, of course, is the pie in the sky, cherry on top piece that every team wants out there, but he's not necessarily going to be accessible to mid markets or those kinds of things. The only players that are maybe at that caliber right now, Mitch Haniger when he's healthy, Brennan Nimmo. Of course, when he played his first full season this year without having to play it as a platoon or because of injury issues or a shortened season, but a full 162 game season, he played 150, was exemplary. The bat stayed about the same that it has through his entire career, but he is on the wrong side of 30. He's at the wrong defensive position for it as well. But another team entering his market is only a good thing for Brendan Nimmo. But again, there's not a lot of good outfielders out there. So if you're looking for for an outfielder this offseason, you might have to go the trade route. Puig's in trouble with a lot of different legal issues right now, not just in Korea, but United States as well. He just took a plea deal the other day as well. But the trade market, what I was trying to get around to anyway, we've touched on the Jesse Winker for the Seattle Mariners as well. Some of these other teams that are struggling, like for instance the Miami Marlins, they signed Jorge Soler a year ago after he had that great run with Atlanta. He could be a piece if you entice the Marlins with enough young talent. Maybe you could get a guy like Jorge Soler out of Miami. Didn't have the greatest year last year, but certainly has the potential to be an impact bat for you. That's pretty much the negotiations that we saw today. Not a lot of movement. As we mentioned last night, there wouldn't be a whole lot to go over until the Thanksgiving holiday passes. Pretty much right after that weekend, that Monday afterward is when you're really going to start seeing some things percolate. Team X, is now interested in, Aaron Judge when we didn't expect it beforehand. So we'll see which way it ends up going as far as the markets, how they shift. The one big news we could see before the Thanksgiving break is Jacob deGrom. I haven't put out many videos on it because I pretty much talked ad nauseum during my lives about Jacob deGrom, but yeah, the Marlins I think would give away Soler, but he could be a nice piece. He's not on a vastly expensive contract. I think he's only making $12 million a year if I remember correctly. He signed a 3-year, $36 million deal. It's been a year since I looked up that information, but I think that's right. 3 years, 36 is what they ended up giving him. Roughly, a win is worth about $8 million in today's Major League Baseball, maybe a little bit more than that at this point, the way the money's going in baseball. But that's roughly a win and a half that you're giving to bring in a guy like Soler. And if he becomes the player that he was in Atlanta, obviously he's worth significantly more than that. But if he becomes at least halfway in between there, we should see. Thank you, Clay. I thought I had that one right, but I just couldn't remember. Like I said, it's been a year since I looked at that one. But as I mentioned, we're going to have some DeGrom videos coming out for you guys. Those of you who aren't able to stick with us every single night and watch these lives, got to keep you guys updated as well, so we'll have some information about Jacob DeGrom. But as I was saying about Thanksgiving, if the Mets are going to be able to get something done with DeGrom, I think that's going to have to happen before next Thursday. If they don't get something done, then I think the market really shifts, leaning towards Texas or him leaving to go elsewhere. Maybe a surprise team, but I think it's heavily Texas if they don't get something done by Thanksgiving. The Mets want to get something done quickly. That's what happened last offseason. I've talked about that a lot as well, how they went after Mark Canha and Starling Marte. This year, they quickly lock up Edwin Diaz. They want to get DeGrom done. If they're not going to get DeGrom done, they already have their backup plans that they're talking to in Senga and Verlander. Then, of course, they want to lock up Nimmo. Nimmo sounds like he could go around the winter meetings, but there's a lot of teams interested, so he might be one case that goes past the winter meetings just because of how vast his market is right now. Aaron Judge, that market seems to be heating up just in time for the winter meetings. There's a deadline tomorrow. What's that, Jose? While we wait for him to get back to us there. One other note on Kodai Senga, he is one truly free agent anyway. What I mean by that, he doesn't have to go through the posting system this year because he's actually earned his free agency in international baseball. So a lot of teams are going to be interested in ace level pitching, maybe even number 2 or maybe even number 3. Say he falls on his face and lands as a number 5, but there seems to be some real optimism around the league that he could be an ace or a number 2 in a rotation. That's why teams are viewing him as such. So we could see a little bit higher dollar figure than we have in the past. Welcome back, Charles. It's been a while. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate you. But Senga, of course, worked to a 1.94 ERA, as you can see on here. Over his entire career, has worked to a 2.59 ERA. Of course, when you're working in international baseball, you don't necessarily work the same amount of innings, so we could see, a 6-man rotation from time to time, or a spot start from another guy from the minor leagues every now and again, or have his rotations turn skipped every now and again as well. But he seems to be a very effective pitcher, striking out 27.5% and walking 8.6% of the batters he faced. Just reading some of the notes here. Upper 90s fastball, split finger. Upper 90s fastball seems to be like a prerequisite nowadays to come into the big leagues at this point. But again, the shift will not be a thing this coming season. So maybe we'll see the return of some actual pitchers instead of just straight velocity. Yeah, I think he'd be a nice bench piece DH, fourth outfielder type. For instance, like the Rangers had statistically the worst left field position in all of baseball, I believe. They really need to bring in somebody in there as a DH type as well. They really need some production there. I think the Marlins, if you're willing to give up a decent prospect to them, maybe they eat $4 million of that and then makes it worth it to the team. Low cost option in a free agent market where there's not really many good hitters on the market. Maybe you're able to spin off that contract and get somebody back in. I know we usually have Anthony in here. He's a Marlins fan. He'll tell you he's willing to make some moves from the Miami Marlins fan base perspective. And I get all that, but you got to give up something to get something. And the pieces he was offering, I think, were a good couple of middling relievers anyway. Florio, Blimel as well. Soler, I think, would have a little bit more value than either one of those two, but maybe you attach one of those relievers with Soler and make that money a little bit more palatable. But we should see a lot of trades around the winter meetings as well. We saw an interesting trade the other day with the Rays, trading away Xavier Edwards. I think he was the guy they got in the D. Gordon trade years ago. Never really blossomed into the prospect that they thought. One other note I saw just before I came on the air is that the Los Angeles Dodgers could non-tender Cody Bellinger. He's going to have a hefty arbitration number just because of his previous years. Obviously, he's not nearly the player that he used to be, but if he ever gets halfway to that type of player again, that'd be a good risk for a ball club that needs some production out there. He's hit around, what, 215, 212, I think, for the majority of last year. The majority of the last couple of years, really. Another player on the free agent market that's going to be impacted by the shift, of course, was Joey Gallo. I put out a few videos over the last couple, or about the last year anyway, about Joey Gallo, his impact on the Rangers at the time of the trade, etc., and how that certainly turned around with the New York Yankees. Strikeouts went through the roof. The pressure of New York just seemed to get to him a little bit. The second he landed in there, they were literally critiquing his wardrobe, and the New York media immediately just didn't embrace him the way I thought they would. He's very different than anything else they had had before, and the strikeouts just went through the roof. The contact went out the door, and we'll see if he can land in a situation where he can get everyday at bats and can solve some of those contact issues. But with the shift going away, he should be able to find some holes every now and again, and hopefully that'll work a lot better for him. Great hitter, great power potential, but it's sad to see what's happened to his career ever since the trade to New York. Yeah. Bellinger and Gallo, I think, are very similar in that boat, that they both regressed significantly. You could even put Christian Yelich in that camp. Not quite as far as Gallo, not quite as far as Bellinger, but he's in that camp as well. Brewers were certainly thinking they got a really good MVP level player for the foreseeable future, and it just hasn't worked out that way. He's been the one dud in that lineup over the last couple of years, but he's Christian Yelich. He could always turn it around, and we'll see if that works out. But he's already got the long-term deal. Gallo and Bellinger do not. Third base is going to be another issue for the Dodgers this year. Now that Justin Turner is out the door, could bring him back on a small deal, but they choose to eat a little bit of money in order to get him out the door. They hung on to him as long as they could, but decided it was better to spend that money on a Clayton Kershaw than on a Justin Turner. Just want to check one more thing. Spoke with y'all last night about the possibility of Rafael Devers might see his time come to an end with the Red Sox anyway, just because of the way the Bogarts negotiations went and how quickly they soured before the season even began. Bogarts basically holding the team at arm's length, saying, I don't even want to discuss my contract with you, how insulting the offers have been. And the Red Sox tried to circle back with him around the trade deadline that they wanted to negotiate a contract again with him. And again, he wasn't going to have it. And basically said so in the media that as much as the Red Sox might want to talk about it, they didn't want to get anything done with it, or he didn't want to get anything done with the team. He wanted to go to free agency and see what kind of value he could really get. Seems like he's on his way out the door. They already have Trevor Story as replacement in house. They could bring in a second baseman there to fill the shoes of Story as he goes back to his natural position at short. Haven't slept in 3 days? Yeah, you might want to get some sleep there, Charles. I've worked open to close the last 2 days as well, and then streamed every night as well, and made a whole bunch of videos. I'm only working on the last 2 days. I think I've gotten a total of like 7 hours of sleep total. So I'll be just like you, sleeping pretty much the second I get off of here and make one or two videos for the morning. That way you guys have something around the 9 a.m. hour and about 10:30 to watch while I get some extra rest. And then I'll make some videos in the morning, and then in the evening we'll have our day. We do a weekday live for you guys to keep you guys updated on what's going on in the world of baseball. So that's when I do streaming. It's every night, Charles. Usually I try to do it around 9, but the last couple nights it's been around 10. But that'll be the next time we stream. And as I mentioned, we'll be doing a live game for you guys tomorrow night and Saturday night. I know I'm doing hockey one of the 2 nights. I'm pretty sure it's both, but there might be another one. I want to say the Knicks and Warriors are on Friday night. I might do that one. Two teams that are certainly struggling, but big markets. I know there's a lot of you guys out there that subscribe to my channel that are fans of both teams, so you want to see if they're improved or finally turning the corner. Well, we just saw Steph Curry put up 50 points the other night and lost still. The Knicks gave up I think it was 140 plus points at home to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So both teams are certainly struggling. Klay Thompson not thinking he doesn't get his due with the team, saying that in the press the other day. So we'll see how that goes. Welcome back, Cobra. Padres might get Turner. I I think they might get a shortstop. I think Turner's a stretch, but maybe they make a Godfather offer and say we'll give you 350 million, something like that. But I don't think they will. I think Turner's very likely to go to Philadelphia. But I think there's a better case to be made for any one of the other three shortstops on the market to go to San Diego. I've talked a little bit about Fernando Tatis Jr. If you made the right offer to San Diego, I think you could convince AJ Preller to let him go. Well, I know the Padres are interested. If I'm any one of the teams in the league right now, even if I already have a shortstop, okay, I'm a Rangers fan. We have two shortstops on our roster. I still want Trey Turner. I would put him in left field and say, go get him, big guy. Why? Because he brings a speed element to the game the Rangers need, an on-base element to the team the Rangers need, and fills a position where they really had no offense last year. They don't really have a solution in the minor leagues either at this moment, so they're going to spend at that position eventually. If they get a guy like Trey Turner, gives you insurance as well, just in case Seager doesn't or starts to wear down, etc. But I don't know. I didn't think they'd be this heavy in on DeGrom, say a year ago at this time, just because I thought DeGrom was probably going to go back to the Mets, but it sounds like they have the really good shot to get DeGrom. But just imagine that. The Rangers weren't expected to get Seager. They weren't expected to get either one of the top shortstops that they did end up getting. They're expected to spend money, don't get me wrong, but they're expected to spend money on guys like Kyle Schwarber or Nick Castellanos, those type of pieces. Not, premium pieces of that offseason, but they got them both. Well, I don't know if you do keep Tatis, I think there's a fair chance you put him in the outfield anyway. Even with the current roster as it's currently constructed, Kim plays short, you move Tatis Jr. into center, something like that, just kind of save him a little bit. I mean, they experimented with that in the minors just before his suspension. Now, say you're able to bring in one of those top flight shortstops, then I think it solidifies either a move to the outfield for Tatis Jr. or a trade. But that would be very interesting there. In case you guys are wondering what is on my screen, I know a lot of you guys are here watching us for the first time. It's baseballtradevalues.com. It's one of the few websites out there that actually tries to calculate with the best ability that's out there anyway. Prospect values versus real values, those kinds of things. That way, when you make way you use NBA Trade Machine, it just mainly focuses on salary. Well, prospects, obviously, there's no salary cap in baseball, so you can always get any trade to be approved via salary. But is the value really there? The prospect as good of a prospect as, say, Jack Leiter is for the Texas Rangers? You're not going to trade Jack Leiter for a backup catcher, So this is a good website to kind of test and see if your trade ideas would actually, have some real traction if you were a real GM. That was originally my dream job when I was a kid. I wanted to be the GM of the Dallas Mavericks. That was my dream job. Then GM of the Texas Rangers, GM of the Dallas Stars, GM of the Dallas Cowboys. That was my ideal job, but as I got older, I realized, I never played in Major League Baseball, professional hockey, the NBA, or the NFL. I don't have a Harvard law degree. I don't have an MBA. I don't know people within the organization. I have sent an email to Mark Cuban, and he did respond personally back to me. That was kind of cool. I was 11 years old at that time. I still got the email, I think, in my Gmail account. That was kind of cool back then. Good memory from back then. But for those of you who always, envision yourself thinking of, ways to improve your team like that like to do the, Madden trades and that kind of thing. Madden trades are not real life, but this way you can kind of get your fix. And yes, As much as GMs like to say they have their own internal reports and those kind of things, they still hear noise on the outside. I guarantee you they all are very familiar with baseballtradevalues.com. I'm sure they get inundated with all kinds of fan emails. Shoot, they may even just do it while they're just tinkering around, just waiting in the airport, just seeing what they can do. You don't think Tatis is going to go anywhere because of a no trade clause? If they sign somebody else to take his position, I think that might change. He's a very young player still, and by all accounts, very immature. And so that would be the impetus to bring in another shortstop. I don't see the argument why he wouldn't waive that no trade clause if he views another team values him more, and the Padres don't value him as much as they used to. But I think for those of you thinking there's a 0% chance Tatis Jr. gets traded, I think you're fooling yourself. Do I think it's a 100% chance? No, but I think it's better than zero. One of the few surprise trade candidates that could be out there. And yes, I definitely will say, I said it here first when it does happen. And if I'm wrong, like I said, it's only a 1% chance right now. You're not getting a guy like Julio Rodriguez, a player like that. You're going to if you do make a trade for Fernando Tatis Jr., it's going to be to replenish the prospect depth that you just gave up for Juan Soto. You might get one good major league piece out of it, maybe two. But you're not getting a guy like Julio Rodriguez. Julio Rodriguez right now has more value than Fernando Tatis Jr., and it's not close. The availability is kind of important, even with Julio being injured. It's the immaturity, the getting motorcycle accidents, those kinds of things. Well, remember they're still paying for the Eric Hosmer deal, so if they did want to, go out there and make a big contract offer, I think they could still stomach it. They did have a lot of money come off the books as far as starters as well. However, they've reinvested that money already into their bullpen, so I'm not sure how much bigger they can really go as far as payroll. Every single offseason, they continue to surprise us. But once they get the deal, first they have to get the deal done for Juan Soto. That, I think, is going to be priority number one with Juan Soto, is just getting that deal done. Hopefully this offseason before spring training begins. If not, at some point over the next year. You don't want him to go in to next season without knowing that you want to keep him around. Well, I get that argument. I mean, the reason why I say that is because a lot of people, when the Roger Clemens issues were going on, the Barry Bonds issues were going on, they were like, well, we don't really know what they would really have towards the back end of their years if they had never done roids, those kinds of things. Well, we had the previous years. I get your argument here is because he's so young, you don't really know when he started using, etc. But I find it hard to believe that as talented as a prospect as he was, as good of a player as he's been in the major leagues, that all of that is due to roids or whatever the case may be that he was taking for quote unquote ringworm, as he put in his excuse. But he's still a very effective player. He is very frail, though. It seems like he gets injured a lot. And so that would be my bigger issue rather than the roids. My biggest issue would be the health of him and the immaturity. If you can get past those two issues, I don't think roids are that big of an issue, because I think the organization that's trading for him will have a much better system in place to be able to handle those kinds of things than the Padres did. I mean, just for him to go to however many motorcycle accidents he had in the offseason, not seeking medical treatment until he finally came stateside and said, hey, by the way, I still don't feel very good. Oh, why is that? Well, I got into all kinds of these motorcycle accidents, and, well, maybe it might be from that. Cobra, what he's referring to is that he was busted for PEDs. That's what he's referring to as roids. But Tatis Jr.'s excuse for the PEDs at least was that it was a treatment for ringworm. He didn't really know what was in it. He apologizes, says he'll do better next time. Sorry, you're a Major League Baseball player. You have to know what's in your product that you're putting, for any treatment of any kind that's going in your body. And it's his responsibility to know those things, even if it was an honest mistake or if it was deliberately intentional and wasn't for ringworm or whatever he claimed. But it's his responsibility to take care of that. I think that's the point Clay is trying to make. Sorry, your comment, Cobra, is just a funny one. I mean, he's not going to be popping pills on the field, or juicing in this dugout with a needle. Those days are long gone in baseball. Those were in the locker room back in the Barry Bonds days. But appreciate you guys joining us. As I mentioned, I've worked a couple of open to closes over the last couple of days, so I'm pretty bushed. But appreciate you guys joining us. Got 13 of you guys with us. We put out about 5 or 6 videos today. If you haven't already checked those out, go ahead and check those out on our YouTube page. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. I know I've gained like 9 of you guys to our community today, so thank you guys very much. If you're watching us for the first time, really appreciate all the support. We're about 90 away right now from our goal of 1,000, and then we're finally going to be able to be monetized and be able to do this full time for you guys. So really appreciate all the support, and hey, tell your friends, hit that like button, subscribe. If they don't watch, I don't tell them to check out a video, see if they like it. But really appreciate all the support for those of you who have joined, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow. We'll have a live for you a little bit earlier for baseball tomorrow, and then again we'll have our baseball game tomorrow night. Or excuse me, not baseball game, but I think it's the basketball or hockey game. I want to say it's the Knicks and Warriors tomorrow night, but we'll see. And appreciate you all. If you have any questions, always submit them on our videos. We always check out all the comments that we do get. Appreciate every single one of you guys who do like those videos as well. So thank you guys, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Y'all have a good one.